May the words of my mouth and meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. This morning's gospel lesson of Jesus and the disciples out in the boat is one of the preschoolers' favorite in chapel during the year, and I always do this story with the preschoolers. So I had originally thought about having you all come up and sit on the floor around here, except, it might take us half an hour to get everybody back up at the end. So you can stay where you are. You'll be happy about that. And what the preschoolers really like is that this is really dramatic, right? Because when you're 4, the world is all about drama. And so when I'm telling this story to the preschoolers, we see who's ever been out in a boat? Who's ever been out in a boat? Okay, storybook boats in Disneyland did not count, but actually on a boat. And so Jesus is asleep in the boat. And a huge wind blows up. And Jesus' disciples are getting really scared because the boat is rocking back and forth and the waves are coming in. And you know what Jesus is doing? So Jesus' disciples are panicking at this point. Like, Jesus, wake up, Jesus, you gotta wake up, man, we're dying here. And Jesus wakes up. What's up, guys? Jesus, it's this huge storm, we're gonna die. She's like, okay. And Jesus stands up, the boat, puts out his hands. Now, the preschoolers all have to put their hands out. You may put your hands out if you wish. And Jesus says, peace, be still. All right, together, you ready? Peace, be still. And it gets really quiet. Really quiet. And Jesus says, don't you know, after all this time, that I will take care of you? That God is watching out for us? In this simple story that the preschoolers love, by the way, and I didn't even do the waves, all the rocking and the stomping, because is a profound lesson for us about the nature of Jesus. Jesus' deep humanity, and at the same time, Jesus' profound divinity. Things that theologians and church people argued about for centuries, killed each other over, are in this short story about Jesus and his apostles, his disciples in the boat. Because Jesus is asleep. Why is Jesus asleep? Because he is so exhausted from his ministry. They're not getting out on the boat like the folks on Gilligan's Island. They're trying to kind of get away from the crowds, get some peace. Jesus needs some rest. And so he falls asleep in the boat because his human body is in need of rest and renewal and sustenance for his ministry. And then in the midst of this crisis, more crisis for them than for him, obviously, Jesus' profound, powerful divinity is on display as well when he calms the wind and the water. and essentially, we believe, probably saved everyone from drowning that day. And so the story sets up for us this duality that is present in our understanding of Jesus. And the story tracks this kind of duality through the entire thing. Jesus is humanity and Jesus is divinity. When things are chaotic, they are loud and noisy and windy, and the waves are beating on the boat. And yet the power of God is quiet and still and peaceful. We have the power of nature on display in a fearful, fearsome way. And then we have the power of God on display in a gentle, caring way. We have those poor disciples who, in spite of all of their experiences with Jesus, still are lacking in faith and lacking in trust, lacking in the certainty that they are beloved children of God. And on the other hand, we have Jesus, knowing that he is a beloved child of God. And those dualities just, they track right through this story. And in spite of everything the disciples have experienced, we know that through the Gospels, they still have trouble with doubt and lack of faith. Jesus sends them out to heal and cast out demons, and they come back. They're like, Jesus, we couldn't do it. O ye of little faith. And yet we know that Jesus is faithful throughout his life. Faithful through his own trials in the desert, being tempted by the devil. Faithful even to his death, when he prays in the garden, Father, please take this cup from me, but your will, not my will, be done. And so what happens when the humanity kind of takes the forefront over here? We have chaos and challenges of faith and trust, and it's loud. And yet when Jesus is present, we have calm and quiet and trust and faithfulness. The apostles are being tossed to and fro. And yet what they have and what they need is right there in the boat with them, and they still forget it. And I think this is such a wonderful reading for us this morning. A wonderful reminder to us. Because I know some of us are feeling tossed to and fro. Maybe you wonder if the waves are swamping your boat. Diana Butler Bass put a thing out on Facebook this week saying, just tell me how you're feeling. How are you feeling? And the overwhelming responses of them, hundreds of them, were people feeling anxious and sad and angry. People being thrown to and fro, wondering if our boats are going to be swamped. And yet what the gospel says to us over and over and over, and I think what we're invited to be reminded of this morning, is that Jesus is in our boat. God is still in our boat. And even when we're hanging on to the gunwales for dear life, we need to remember to wake Jesus up and then be reminded that it is there that there is peace. And it is there that there is stillness and calm. It is there where God is. So Mark tells this really, you read it and you're like, oh, it's a simple story about some waves and a boat and Jesus. But it really is a profound message this morning to us, I think, right now, who are feeling thrown a little to and fro, feeling like the world is a little more chaotic than it often is. Jesus is in our boat. We are still being watched over. God is still present. God is still offering God's peace to us. But perhaps the place where that peace is really being offered is inside, is our own peace. The peace that we need, the stillness that we need to get up every day and go to work or to school or wherever it is you spend your day, wherever it is you get your news, wherever it is that you are finding it challenging and hard. That peace and stillness is still ours. It is still at work in us. It is still with us. The very essence of who Jesus was, Emmanuel, God with us, that hasn't changed. So this is my prayer for us this week and for you. Your boat is not being swamped because God is still present within you, inviting you to peace, inviting you to some stillness, reminding you that God's presence and God continues to walk with us. So take some time to find some peace. Take some time to find the calm. And remember that God is with you. Amen.